welcome back to Boss Dogs with the man himself, Waf. How you doing today, sir?
What's up, bro? I'm a little bit under the weather, but not like Bitcoin, man. I couldn't miss the show, with all the stuff that's happening in the market today. Um, 7-8% drop in Bitcoin in a day, man. That's something.
No kidding. Definitely hope you feel better first and foremost, and we can keep this episode a little bit shorter than usual. Definitely make sure we're fully wrapped by the hour. But if any point, Waf, if you want to take off, feel free. But yeah, let's talk about it. Bitcoin down a lot. Looks like it lost a bit of its support. It's at the 60K here for the people listening in for Wake and Jake earlier. I know 60K was described as a potential fake support zone or a weak one, at least by Crypto Don Alt, who Jake is a fan of. I'm also a pretty big fan of on Twitter. So we'll see where things go, but it's looking a little bit of slidey right now to start or to end the month of June. Anything you're eyeing, WAF, or any thought as to where this price action might be coming from?
I'll say this on my thoughts on Bitcoin. We've been range bound for quite a while between 60 and 70. We didn't break that support. We didn't close any week above the all-time high, and now we've been pushed back down to what should be support. I guess we'll find out soon enough to see if this 60K level could hold. You got a couple of things, I guess, working against Bitcoin's favor is which Friday, Germany was selling Bitcoin, and I believe they have $3 billion worth of Bitcoin. And then you had Mount Gox come out today saying like they're about to distribute Bitcoin, and so there's potentially another $9 billion of potential sell pressure there. And you had some outflows in the ETF markets today, but despite all of that, I've literally never seen so much opportunity in my life. I'm still holding bullish.
I love it, dude. Well said, WAF. That had the same energy as the Michael Jordan "I'm back" text or Jordan Belfort, "I'm not leaving." So I totally agree with you there, man. I did have some money in stables. I really think I sold off a couple weeks ago when it looked like Bitcoin was struggling to reclaim 70. For me, I had just seen it a few times at that level. And I will say, like, I've noticed in crypto, people tend to just really latch on to bias one way or another. I feel like after enough cycles, you just gotta learn to be liquid and be like water. So I'm very excited. I definitely started buying some more Bitcoin today off the dip. I think it could go a little bit lower, but the course of action is always just dollar cost averaging in on things to have conviction in. I think Bitcoin is just such an easy thing to believe in and have conviction in. So, I think still with this kind of particular asset, the upside far outweighs the downside. And any price point that I could see Bitcoin going to, it would just make me a bigger buyer at that point. So I think it's always just taking profits along the way, but then getting ready to roll them back into some more. So, I think to your point, it's really is a cool opportunity. That being said, I don't think it's going to immediately go higher and launch. There do seem to be a few things in the macro that have us going down for a bit, but still been a really strong year, and I think zooming out, it's still pretty bullish. So you got to just keep that in mind and tune out some of the doom and gloom when the timeline gets a little too uh, negative.
Yeah, I mean, like if you counter trade emotions, like the max bearish usually means it's a bottom and it's time to buy. You could say today's a good day to shoot your shot on whatever you like. I would say, don't empty the clip, right? Like keep some bullets, hold some bullets back. I looked at billion dollar cat today, and you could buy it today at half the market cap it was when we did this show last week. You got Wizard at $3.64. So there's a lot of opportunities there. I mean, just Bitcoin in itself is opportunity, but if you're gonna dive into the ecosystem, there's a lot of things you could just take a shot at, and just stay liquid at the same time.
Yeah, totally agree with you, man. And both great names that you threw out. I bought some billion dollar cat when it tested 31 million market cap. I think I also bought some when it tested 42. So I don't always time it. And I wouldn't be surprised if it goes a little bit lower. But I bought some of that. I've been buying some more Wizard as it goes down. I saw an announcement of an announcement today. I think G6 shared that in the Ordinals chat. It looks like there's two accounts for Magic Internet Money. So the actual Magic Internet Money Twitter account said in 3 weeks there's going to be some sort of announcement. So still a long timeline for that, but I think in general, Rune's ecosystem is just really poised to go. I think it's just really nice because they're coins, so you don't have to worry as much about liquidity as something like ordinals. We'll definitely talk about ordinals at some point here, but yeah, I'm totally lockstep with you, Waf. Just looking at some runes to get good entries in, and as the price keeps going lower, I mean, I definitely plan on keeping on buying, even if the Bitcoin drops further and whatever else. I still believe in all the things I'm buying here.
Yeah, like right now for me, rune wise, I got 3 runes that seem to be a little bit a cut above the rest right now for me, and that's $1 billion cat, dog go to the moon, and Arsic. I just feel like the volume's still there on those 3. And again, you get $1 billion market cap at $1 billion cat at the $35 million market cap now. It was like around 70 last week. Again, Arsic at 100 million and dog go to the moon at about half a billion. So really on sale. I think when we get a bounce back in Bitcoin, typically what you'll see is on these other beta plays that have gone down considerably, they're going to go up like really quick. So it would not surprise me to see like a 50% gain in a day, or 75%, or even 100% gain on a day. So like to me, if you're down on any runes, I would just hold, maybe even potentially add. I would not sell. I don't think you sell any of this stuff yet, but you could potentially just be buying. And those are the 3 I'm really looking at right now.
Yeah, completely agree with you there, Waf. Definitely not financial advice as always on the show, but I'm right there with you, man. I mean, I think I would understand selling if it was something that was pretty low conviction. I think with meme coins, I mean, same with NFTs, right? It's something that if it's not a blue chip, if it hasn't cemented itself in the space, it is subject to getting just churned out and then losing that attention ecosystem. We've seen that lots of times with random projects, like Inked on Bitcoin is what I can think of for Ordinals, one where it just really had the landscape and the stage really quickly. Even something like Blobs, I think it's on that cusp of, well, it had a lot of volume for a sustained period of time. It still has a lot of volume, but it is kind of selling off. Even Natcats, you could make the same argument. I mean, I hold a bunch of them, so I would like the argument to not be made. But just looking at it objectively, it's no node monkey, it's no puppet. It's not something that's just been solidified time and time again with buying volume. But those runes that you named, there really is just crazy volume on it. I mean, volume on runes is down across the board, but even with that, you're seeing relatively high volume on $1 billion cat. You're still seeing really good volume on dog go to the moon. And you're also seeing it on Arsic. So I totally agree, man. You just got to look at the comps of where it's been. I really don't think that we're even close to the all-time high for Rune Mania. I don't think we've seen that yet. It seems like runes are off to a slow start, but I think Dog Go to the Moon was very close to hitting a billion at one point. It's now down almost 50% from there. So a really good opportunity for a double up if it just returns to its high. And, again, I think to your point on these beta plays that if we get a resurgence in Bitcoin price, or even if it flatlines, but people focus on runes, maybe post blast with there's some liquidity, these things can go 100% in a day. So I'm not really sweating it too much if stuff is down 30, 40%. You just got to, like you said, you can't shoot your whole shot immediately. You want to keep a little liquid for times like these, but now's where it starts to get interesting.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, Blast is in 2 days, and it seems like people have forgotten about that, and that's going to be a big liquidity injection. And just for anyone who missed runes initially, like this is a nice reset, and a nice opportunity to get in at a lower price. I think because not everybody was in the ecosystem, probably missed something, right? Because a lot of these runes were like pre-runes, so if you weren't in like early, you didn't really get a chance to capture a large bag of dog or Arsic or anything like that. So now here's a chance to get in at a way smaller market cap. We've seen this cycle play out time and time again. I really don't think the bull cycle's over. I just think it's, we talked about sell in May and go away, and then maybe for like a week it looked like that was not the right decision, but now it actually looks like the right decision again. So this is just a summertime slowdown. Probably pick up again like late August into September, right? And I think Q3 we'll be, ripping and rolling again. And I just think that's what it is. I've been touching grass a lot, not paying attention to the market, not getting too stressed. I think a lot of people doing the same thing. Um, for me, the weather's nice. I'm just trying to enjoy the summer, and I'm not going to really look at my portfolio too much. I'm going to look for some opportunities. I'm going to take advantage of it. I'm just going to kind of trade like without emotion. That's kind of like my game plan.
Nice, wow. I love it, dude. Yeah, I mean, I think that's the way you got to be. It's really easy to have fun in crypto when things are just going straight up, but that's just not how the space works. We're really further along here in the space, and definitely this far along, cycles last a little bit shorter, at least in terms of the boom and bust cycles. But it goes in both directions. Like we really did have a few months of just up only for ordinals. There's a lot of stuff for runes that was hitting fire. I mean, last week after our episode, you were calling out some stuff that was 8xing. Like there are really good opportunities in the space. So it's never just going to be a super easy giveaway of cash all the time. There's definitely going to be setbacks along the way. But I think just focusing again on runes. I know you and I were messaging back and forth today, WAF, just really thinking the opportunity is there. Let's break down into it a little bit. So just kind of focusing on Bitcoin here as a store of value, which is I think what a lot of people talk about in the space. I think it becomes pretty clear in 2024 really where that narrative comes into play. I know that it's still not fully accepted as this quote unquote store of value or making it comparable to gold, but you just see with inflation running rampant and prices going up and up and up, there's just a lot of concern about ownership of assets in the world, houses, cars, even. So something like Bitcoin comes along where there's a fixed amount of supply. There's nothing else that can be done. It seems like the people who started Bitcoin are gone. I don't know where Satoshi is. I don't know if he'll ever come back or not, but it's pretty much just set up and that's it. So with a fixed asset like Bitcoin, you can really see where inflation has people worried, and it does seem like we want to gravitate towards some form of currency that can't be manipulated and is truly just at the hands of the market and nothing else.
Yeah, I think Bitcoin really excels when you're talking about like currency debasement. And right now, interest rates are still pretty high, and it's probably keeping a lid on Bitcoin for now. But at some point, there will be a rate cut. There will go back to some level of monetary easing. It just has to happen with the interest that the government's paying on the debt. It's just like a an astounding number. And then just with like all the socioeconomic conditions, if you have a lot of money, you could park it in commercial real estate, or you could own property and deal with renters, or you could just like park it in Bitcoin. I mean, like, it's almost like hassle free, right? You don't really need to like manage it. It just put it in a cold wallet and just sit on it, right? Rather than have to deal with some other counterparty risk or liability, whether like you're holding, let's say, like if you own gold, right, you have to store it somewhere. You got to worry about counterparty risk. um if you're a property owner and you have multiple properties, you got to deal with renters and renting rights across different states, right? You might deal with squatters, you might deal with just like non-payment. So there's a lot of things that make Bitcoin attractive to the wealthy, and I just think this is just like such a low amount. I always talk about Bitcoin's been over 60K since pretty much February 28th, and it was only 2 days that it went below, and now today's the third day, and like today hasn't officially closed yet. I guess like in about 3 hours, it can still catch 60K, and it's really not a big deal when you're still like 10-15% away from an all time high. I mean, how bearish could you really get? Because like if we had a 10% day in like in a week or two, everybody would flip bullish like in an instant off of one 10% move. So I think people tend to overreact when things go to the downside. I just think you got to keep your proper perspective. I mean, we're still at 60K, more or less 59.5, whatever it is. So I'm just gonna stay bullish. Like this thing, nothing has fundamentally changed.
Yeah, really well said, Waf. I mean, looking back a year ago from today, we were at about 30,500. So we're still about a 2x in only a year. And if you zoom back a little bit further, like a year and a half, we're almost a 3x. So if you just look at how much Bitcoin has run up, there really haven't been too substantial pullbacks since then. So it makes sense when people get super bowled up over the ETF approvals of both Bitcoin and ETH that at some point there's going to be some pullback or some selling of the profit that people had on that run up. But going back to your point of just Bitcoin being an easy asset to hold, the appeal for the wealthy, at some point, Bitcoin should continue to run. I think it's a pretty easy thesis, and just there's only so much of it to go around. There's going to be people who are going to want it. I mean, we've seen forever since it's came out, the projections have always just increased, right? I mean, even when it's at 60K now, people will say, oh, well, Bitcoin's going to go to 1 million. It's got to go to 100,000. I'm sure there will come a day when we see Bitcoin at the 100,000. It's all cyclical. Same thing with the S&P 500. It just goes up over time. Not that it's designed the same way that Bitcoin is, but if we assume that crypto is a trend that's here to stay, it should be going up into the future, along with inflation or anything else. But Bitcoin should definitely be going up. And then I think once you can accept that and you can see the value proposition in Bitcoin, that's where I really start to get excited about runes, right? Because you really have this beta play, like you're talking about, of people wanting to be involved in the ecosystem. They want to get Bitcoin. What do you do if you don't have Bitcoin, but you have cash you want to invest and you want to get some exposure of these movements? I mean, Bitcoin has this enormous market cap. So we're talking about drops in the bucket with runes as we see today. But as we've seen over the past couple of years, there's just serious fire that can catch with some of these shit coins as beta plays on other stuff. We've seen it with Pepe on ETH. We saw it with WIF on Solana this year. So I think it would just be crazy for these runes not to catch on. Albeit it might be slower, but Bitcoin's always been kind of the slower chain, right? It was really only a year ago that we had ordinals. I'd say they have barely caught on in the grand scope of crypto. But even within these crypto spheres and people trading it, I really think ordinals didn't heat up until maybe 3-ish months ago. So for runes to be just another fold of technological barrier to get in, it's going to take a while, but the play is for sure there. They're set up very well to be shit coins and altcoins on Bitcoin. I think that's what people are going to be looking at because they are on chain, they are hard coded, they do have finite supplies for the most part. So, I mean, if you just take all of that into account and you're a believer of the narrative of Bitcoin, like you said, Waf, it's a great time to just go out and enjoy the summer and, buy stuff you believe in, come back, and hopefully it's doing well.
Yeah, you always tend to like build your positions when people are not paying attention and the market's not hot anymore. So like when people will declare like are dead, as an example, they'll go away, go on to another chain and what have you. And then the people that stay wind up like adding to their bags. And then when the cycle comes back around and everyone comes back, like you're already in position. So it always pays to keep up with the market. I mean, I just feel like it's playing out exactly like BRC20s. BRC20s also had like that hot moment early on in I want to say like March, April, and May of 2023, and then it just like died and fell off a cliff, and then like had like a resurgence back in November. So like again, something like that playing out for runes when and we were talking at much higher levels as far as Bitcoin price is concerned. I just see it playing out like that all over again. So I think the opportunity is gigantic when it comes to runes. I really do.
I love that, Waf. Yeah, 100%. I think that really is a great opportunity. Let me ask you, Waf, for some of these runes that you're trading, are you taking profit as it goes along? Do you usually wait until things really catch fire to sell the whole bag? I know for people listening in, they've heard us talk a lot about bullishness, and we definitely, talk about when we think the tides might be turning. But in these little pockets of time where it's down and you're not selling, like when do you decide, okay, I'm going to take some off here, and it is a good time to start scaling out?
The general way I play it is kind of like what my cost basis is. So if my cost basis is essentially minuscule, then I'll be more diamond handed with my position. If I paid more for my position, then I'll try and get out quicker and take profit as well. But if I got something for free, I don't mind holding it and letting it see how it plays out. Sometimes I'll take some profit off the table just based on maybe at my conviction on a particular item is no longer there, and I'll look to sell it. And I'll try and keep a moon bag. I think I'm not the greatest when it comes to a moon bag, because usually when I'm done with something, I sell off the whole thing, and I've been trying to change that a little bit. But that's how I kind of play it, just based on like what's my entry cost, and if it's really low, then I'm okay sticking with it for like as long as it takes. If my cost basis is high, I'm gonna look to exit a lot faster.
Yeah. And that's a really great way of looking at it, Waf. And I mean, I think that definitely just sort of brings into question, or not into question, but just something to think about is, where are you buying these things? Not you, but just anyone in general, right? Like, it's interesting that a lot of us as people will have greed kick in or FOMO kick in when stuff is ripping. Like, I definitely know when Billion Dollar Cat was passing the $50 million market cap, I was like, damn, I need to get in right now. And it would be a way higher cost basis than if you're waiting for the fear and panic. So, in terms of keeping cost basis as low as possible, it definitely seems like these fear based events are great times to buy. It's a little bit trickier because you don't know when the exact bottom is, right? And if Bitcoin crashes through here and goes to 52K, I'm sure runes will be down as a result. But I think you just got to keep looking at how much can it really fall, how much did you buy in, and how much can you buy in to get a good entry? And I think at a lot of these prices right now, it's already a pretty good entry where they can get back to their previous high pretty quickly.
Yeah, I agree, and I'll say this too. Like, there's been plenty of times where like my bags, I've watched the high pass me by, and on my way to round tripping, or just having less profit, unrealized profit, than I would have had if I sold the top. Although I know I can't perfectly time the tops, but at the same time, that strategy's let me hold better. So like, I actually, like, as a result of it, even hitting its all time high and going down, I'm in a better position than if I just flipped it right away, because I still captured like additional multiples that it achieved, but didn't like get out at the ultimate high.
Yeah, and I mean that's totally normal for trading. Like, I think that's the hardest part about being a trader, is really just turning off the part of your brain that's gonna like analyze it retroactively. And I mean, I've had the saying "eyes wide," or not eyes wide shut. That's a completely different saying. Eyes forward in MVHQ, and I mean, it's really just useful advice in trading. Just really not looking back and analyzing it. I'm sure lots of us will at some point and think about how much did I leave on the table, but I really would just try to view it as what the feeling is. And I mean, we were talking about that a little bit in DMs today, right? It's just when people are really bowled up and it's just like crypto's going to the moon, Bitcoin's going to 100K or 200K by year end. That's when it's like, okay, I should really be looking to sell, or at least take some profits here, because people are bowled up and can't get enough. This is the time when everyone's going to be fearful, and we're down what 15%, and people are saying, "Oh yeah, Bitcoin's going to go to 40K, like it's all over." It's crazy.
What do you think is like the general market feel now? Do you think it's panic and fear, or is it more like anger, or like depression? Like, where would you say we are in like the Wall Street chart, in terms of crypto?
I personally think we're gonna go a little bit lower here, because I think there's just too much hopium in the air. Usually, hopium is like, when I'm seeing that as the majority theme on the timeline, when we start going lower, but we're not really there yet, and it hasn't turned into like, wow, I'm done. Like, I'm so beat up and depressed. Not trying to make light of that, because those are all like very serious things, and people can feel how they're feeling. But again, just like objectively looking at how I've seen the timeline react before, when you see people who are just cursing out people posting negative sentiment and stuff, and like Kryptodon Alt, he gets so much hate and stuff because he's posting charts saying we're going to be going lower. Okay, I think we go a little bit lower from here, potentially lose the 60K resistance. Hopefully, I'm wrong. I don't think it's going to be anything crazy long, but I would probably expect us to sell off for maybe another week or two. Blast TGE is the big question mark on the calendar. I do think that has the potential to revamp the space again, because there's going to be so much liquidity freed up. So we could see a lot of buying. But yeah, I think there's just a lot of hope right now. I think people are kind of just like not processing that we're going lower. Once I see people start admitting defeat and capitulating and being very doom and gloomy, and that's the majority of the timeline, is just people being like, we're fucked, we're fucked, we're fucked, we're fucked. That's when we go higher. It's always like a constant battle of rug pulls in both directions. Not just the bulls getting rug pulled, but the bears too. They like, as soon as everyone gets positioned, we're going lower, we're going to go higher. That's like just how the markets usually play out, is however the most money can get extracted from the market. So I think right now you probably have a lot of positioning to the upside, trying to catch the dip. I think once we shift and there's just a ton of downside positioning after a big move down, that's probably when they're gonna rip it up because that'll catch a ton of people off sides.
It's interesting. I was looking at the chart like while you were saying that to see like where that fits in. Um, and I would never have guessed this. That kind of looks like the denial stage. Um, whereas like my investments are with great companies that will come back. And then after that you hit panic and then capitulation and then anger and then depression and then disbelief. But I don't think we're really there. It's just interesting to kind of get that thought process in play to see how it fits with the psychology of the entire market cycle. I personally think like that there's like a good amount, a healthy amount of bearishness and bullishness out there that I don't think we're at like a cycle top. And just like kind of believe in the 4-year cycle anyway. So I do think we are going to see a rally. I did see like someone post on X like the previous uh, three halvings and how the Bitcoin price looked like 8 weeks later, and we are in like in pretty much the biggest consolidation and down movement after Bitcoin halving in out of the last 4 halvings. So I just think there's like an explosive move coming. I don't know when, but it's like one of those things where you can't time the market, right? You're either in it or you're out, and when that move happens, like if you're not in, then you just completely miss it. You completely miss like all the gains because all the gains happen in a short amount of time.
Oh yeah, completely agree with. And I mean, even more so on these things that we're talking about, right? Like ordinals for sure are gonna rip hard when it happens because they're 10K supplies. So what happens when someone sweeps $3 million worth of ordinals? It's like a lot of money, but to big buyers out there, it's nothing. And if you have $3 million and you sweep an ordinal floor and it triples in value, great. You stand to make $9 million on paper, of course, but like you stand to make huge gains. So the market's going to move with or without you. I totally agree with you. It doesn't make sense to sell these things at these price points, but like you just look at some of these names on runes that are beaten down. If they get one good day where we have major inflows coming from other places back into runes, that's it. Like you missed it. And you could still ride it there for an additional, I don't know, maybe 100% if runes go gangbusters, maybe 50% or whatever else. But like these are the moves. And there's different strategies for traders. I think you and IWAF are probably people who see the vision. We have conviction. We probably buy it when prices are down and try to front run a little bit. I know there's lots of traders who wait for that confirmation candle. So maybe they're going to wait and say, okay, R6 back up 30% from the lows. Now I'm going to buy it. That's totally valid too. This is not to say that you're going to miss the entire move if you don't buy right now. Definitely not trying to advocate for that. But I think in general, you really got to like keep an eye out on these things. And when the volume starts coming back, like then it really expedites because once you see the 30-day, 30% a day, then next thing you know, you're up. I mean, you saw with $1 billion cat the first time, it just exploded in the course of like 4 days.
I agree with you. Like when you miss that move, and then you get in later, it becomes more of a trade. You got higher risk. You can still make money, but if you're in when it's really low, it makes it that much easier to hold when it goes up. For me, anyway. But you mentioned ordinals, so I wanted to kind of bring the conversation around ordinals. A couple of them that like stood out to me today is Runestone approaching the point zero 0.01 price that we were looking for, or a little bit under. It's at 0.011. And then another collection that's seemingly a lot further down than I thought it would be is OMB at 0.183. I think that's approaching a potential buy zone right there. OMB.
OMB. Yeah, I actually noticed that over the weekend, Waf. It's really dropping off there and a great callback as well at Runestone. I think we said last episode below zero point zero 0.01 is a really good buy zone for them. So completely agree. I mean, you're just setting up great trades here, Waf, all around. I mean, same thing with Dog Go to the Moon. I know I've expressed on this show before that's not my main cup of tea, but I think if it gets below 500 mil, like it's just a pretty solid setup for a nice return. And I always just compare it to the rest of the market. Like 8% in the stock market is great. That's on pace for just the S&P. So if you can buy Doggo to the Moon and double your money even in a couple months, like that's a phenomenal trade. And I think that's pretty low risk, all things considered.
Totally agree, especially if you were just gonna hold Bitcoin anyway. Like, why not? You could just put a little allocation into that, and it's sort of like a leverage long on Bitcoin. Which, speaking of which, like before we opened the show today, I threw in a leverage long on Bitcoin. Just think the prices is too low, and it looks like I caught it at 59 too. It's already at like 59.8 within like 30 minutes, so not bad. Um, I do want to answer Big Floppa's question that he threw out here a little while ago about what we think about RSIC. Seeing too many people disappointed with them after their silence. I think the silence is intentional, honestly. Um, Supposedly they might be the first programmable rune or a rune DeFi. It's been kind of under wraps, but I think the rune dev, the RSIC dev, he's probably the best dev out there. So him staying quiet and not saying anything until he's ready is, I think, is bullish in my opinion.
Yeah, I would echo that sentiment, Waf. I mean, again, I think it's difficult in the crypto space because we do have a lot of history of builders rugging or people not delivering, but RSIC really just never set expectations. They've always just been delivering when there's results to deliver. I think they've said that on their Twitter before, that they really just like to put stuff out when they're done. So I don't think there's anything they've shown us with their work so far that would leave me thinking they're not capable of it or don't have something planned. They really have had lots of stages and stuff in the pre-rune phase. And again, they just dominated pre-runes, right? It's not even close. Like they had so many more mechanics. They were the first people to be doing it. They were airdropping. They really just every step of the way have crushed it. It doesn't really, in my mind, make sense that they would be crushing it, doing all this stuff where they're airdropping for free, not really having opportunities for the dev team to make a ton of money. I guess they did have some pre-runes they could have airdropped to themselves as well, but like they have all these things that we haven't seen plan. They haven't seen them play out. Like we don't still know what the individual runes did, or what all these points accrued for. So it seems to me like there's going to be an end of the story. I would be more concerned if they did announce something and it just looked bad. But off of nothing, I would just say, you got to have some faith and vision. It's honestly very similar to Magic Internet Money. Like Maven's Bot has not announced what's going on with the burn mechanic. Some people keep fighting, oh, they're going away, it's bearish, all that other stuff, but there's still a community that believes in it and is holding it. And it seems like a decent bet. Like I don't think it's fully priced in yet at 100 million market cap. If they come back and deliver the thing, like there you go, right? Like it should take off pretty well from there.
I mean, the fact that RSIC points back to like inscription number 26 or 27, and it was like rumored that it's Raktoshi, and if it winds up being true, then RSIC flies, node monkeys fly. I think all that kind of goes together as as the cycle continues. Like that would be like a perfect cherry on top story at the end of the year if it is Raktoshi.
Oh yeah, dude, that would be insane. Um, but going back to ordinals a little bit, and great shout on the runestone. Still looking to get a couple of those when the price is right. But it seems like things are just selling off pretty big. All things considered, I was really surprised to see node monkeys today are chilling at 0.16. A few sales in the low 0.15 range overnight. I really do want to buy one at some point. I just like can't determine what the buy-in is. Part of me does think that this is close to the bottom. I think Node Monkeys I do feel pretty good about for a swing trade. I really am looking to get Quantum Cat sub 0.2. That's really been my price point that I've just told myself like it's a no-brainer. I think buying at that point is a really just good position because we know that the um, what is it? The Wizards at some point, Taproot Wizards are going to come out. So I think that's a better play. That's kind of where I would be stockpiling liquidity. But to your point too, Waf, like OMB's 0.2, that's crazy. When we do get a rotation back to ordinals, these prices are going to just be crazy. Like I think these prices are what they were maybe 3 or 4 months ago when ordinals first started picking up steam. I remember uh, Node Monkeys ran to like 0.14 and it was crazy. We're almost there again. So we're almost at the local top of last time cycle. Um, I'm still a little uncertain, candidly. I just feel like people don't care as much about NFTs anymore. I don't think people are putting as much significance on like profile pictures within the space. I think maybe that was a bit more of like a COVID trend when people were inside and everyone's online. So it's kind of a cool flex of like, damn, this guy's got a profile picture worth 100K or 200K, whatever it is. So my personal bias is slanting more towards runes right now because I think it's a little bit easier to just focus on the liquidity. But I'm not discouraging ordinals by any means because you just got to look at the mean price that people have paid. People have paid so much in ordinals over the past 6 months. I don't think that's just going to go away. But I am definitely more bullish runes right now than ordinals.
I agree too, and that's why this probably is an opportunity in the ordinal space because it's just the sentiment's so bearish right now. We got a couple of collections that have still been holding up pretty well, like Pizza Ninjas that is still over 0.10 floor. I think that's pretty good. And even Quantum Cats, like like you said, you're looking for under point 0.2. I'm actually surprised it's still over, 0.237. It's actually up for the day, which is crazy. So there's definitely some ordinals out there that have been beaten down. I think Node Monkey's 0.159. That's a really good price. I mean, we're gonna look back in a few months and wonder why we didn't buy now. Because that meme of I don't know about a meme, but usually you see that thing all the time where someone's got a lot of crypto and then you hear about, oh, he got lucky, and meanwhile you gotta hold through these times. This is like, it's not lucky, right? At the end of the day, it's not lucky. You held through these times, things emerge, come back, and you held on, and that's how you make money, right? And people think you got lucky, but that's not the case. There's people that are in it and they know what it is. They go through it, they experience it, the highs and lows, and see it through, through their conviction, and ultimately they should benefit from that conviction in the end. And I think that's what's going to happen here again.
Well said, Waf. Yeah, totally agree. And the price in ordinals is going down in two senses right now. It's cheaper in Bitcoin terms, but the Bitcoin Cash itself is worth less. So you're really getting a discount on two fronts. As we've seen, a lot of times when Bitcoin rips, ordinal prices will go with it. So I mean, at any price point, the goal is still to multiply Bitcoin. Like I really wouldn't care if Bitcoin drops to 30K and it just stays flat for a couple months. We hope that ordinals and runes will get a surge of buyers even before the Bitcoin price reflects. So, again, going back to this Blast TGE, I know we've talked about it a lot, and the whole space is going to be glued on it in 2 days from now. But um, the liquidity that's going to be coming out of that, it's not going to be enough to like shoot the Bitcoin price up, right? I mean, that's a drop in the bucket compared to the action from the bank. So I'm not going to expect Blast to turn around Bitcoin by any means, but we might see some of that cash trickle over into ordinals and runes. I would hope so, at least, because I think this is just a phenomenal opportunity to multiply some Bitcoin if you're able to. I really do get a nice feeling of when Bitcoin was sub 60K earlier in the year when we were trading it and trading ordinals. Like as these prices get lower, I just want to take advantage of every opportunity to get these small micro flips and scalps because it really adds up. So when we're talking about collections like Node Monkeys, we're gonna see some awesome opportunities here where if it goes to 0.15 or 0.14, if you can find that place where the floor gets kind of thin and then buy one and sell it for like 0.02 higher, do that 5 or 10 times and like boom, now you're really building a Bitcoin stack. So there's lots of opportunities here. These prices are just phenomenal ops for whatever setup you are, but it doesn't even have to be long term. Just short term, I think there's going to be really solid ops here too.
Yeah, I totally agree. We say like NFTs are probably a little bit dead, and that's why the PFP profile is not like the thing it used to be, which I could believe that. I could buy that. But I definitely think ordinals are less dead than like NFTs on Ethereum or any Ethereum like L2, right? That's even more dead in my opinion. So I guess my question to you is this: where do you think the majority of the blast liquidity is going to go? Like I know you said that some would flow into ordinals and potentially runes, but like for that liquidity that doesn't flow into ordinals or runes, where do you think it's going?
I think a good amount of it is probably going to stay in the Blast ecosystem, to be honest. I know we've speculated about this a lot where people are saying Pac-Man has something up his sleeve for another season. I'm probably a little less inclined to think he's got a big announcement. I know his track record was he, released Blur and then had Blast teased. I just don't really know where he would go from here on a grand scale, right? Like the whole idea of Blast was this is an L2 with native yield. It's a really fascinating concept, but like it's so grandiose. So the idea that he would have a more grandiose idea after Blast, after we've seen him push it back for delays, after we've seen the work he's put into it, it's like, you know, I don't know how much brain power this guy can have. If he does have something like that cooked up where he's like, hey, I got this insane L3 and it's going to blow the socks off the L2 and now everyone bridge over there, all power to him. But just thinking about realistically, what do I think happens from here to there? I think it's probably going to be some buildup on top of Blast. So my guess is it's probably going to be a staking rewards situation. There's probably going to be advanced staking available where if you stake part of your liquidity from Blast, you get incentivized, probably like bonus juice for your multiplier or something, or you receive more portion of the Blast payout or yield than you would in season one. I think that's like, to me, what makes the most sense. He has been pretty quiet during Blast, but again, there's just so many more components and pieces to it than Blur that like I don't think that while he was bug fixing and making sure Blast was running smoothly, that he was also building another system on top of that. It's totally possible. This is totally speculation at this point, but I don't think there's going to be this grand thing. So I think a lot of it's just going to get sold and leave Blast. I think probably 50% of it's just going to stay on Blast and people will roll it for the next season. But that's kind of it. I think those are the two things I'm most expecting.
That makes a lot of sense. I think there's got to be some new Ponzi nomics or something to keep that liquidity on the chain. But doesn't it take a while to bridge out? If I'm not mistaken, I haven't bridged out yet, but I think it takes some time to bridge out.
It doesn't take very long. There's a few different exchanges that exist now. The one I use is called Synapse. I think it takes like 20 minutes, but a standard one you could use like Orbiter, it is pretty instantaneous, maybe slightly slower than something like Sol to ETH. There's just higher bridge out fees than other networks. So I have noticed on Blast you do pay a little bit more premium, but yeah, it's nothing like Merlin where you have to wait a couple of days. It's pretty instant.
Yeah, so I think when I get my blast, like what's kind of to your point, I'm willing to like leave some there, and but then take some off the table and maybe bring it into the Bitcoin ecosystem. But I mean, I don't really have to do that. But runes, I can see get a pop because it's such a small micro cap. It could get a pop. Same thing with ordinals.
Oh yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think there's just so much money that's left on the table, and like they designed Blast in a really UX UI, not to throw buzzwords out here, but like they really designed it to keep people on the ecosystem, right? Like you look at your multiplier on Blast, 32x if you use the right apps. You see how many points you have and just that visual ticker of it going up so high, and you pick these huge numbers. Like, of course you want your money in Blast, right? You wouldn't want to be pulling it out. It's been touted as this huge thing. Obviously, the airdrop's going to be huge. We are reminiscent of Blur Season 1. We're seeing all the speculation of like what gold is going to be worth. Seems like a lot of people are going to cook. So I don't really see why people would be pulling off early. It definitely seems like people are going to have their money staked there. It's a little bit different from Merlin, where it was all locked up, so there was no choice. But yeah, I think people are going to have their money there, especially for people who are just staking ETH or other assets. You'd have to imagine that people who wanted out by now and wanted to sell, there would already be some of that. So I think a lot of this offloads we're going to see are just everyone waiting for this TGE. And I mean, they talked about on Wake and Jake, right? There's not a ton of apps that people actually want to use. So if the airdrop is killer, like super, super good, I'm sure there's going to be a bigger percentage of people farming season two. So more of that will stay on Blast and people will just hit the ground harder. But we've seen the apps. So unless there's a brand new app that gets unveiled, if the airdrop is anything less than stellar, I would say a decent portion of that is going to go elsewhere. And while people could totally just USD and cash out and leave the system, my guess is they're going to be looking at other stuff on the space on fire sale and say, hey, I got all this cash from Blast. What am I going to do with it?
I saw something where they said like each million points is gonna probably be the equivalent of like $56. I think if that's the case, I think most people will be disappointed. So maybe they'll just take their money and go. But if they get a nice like fat stimmy, then they'll probably keep it on there. So it's what I'm thinking.
Yeah, I totally agree. And shout out to Jake. He just shared in voice hangout chat. Apparently, Relay is the best low cost bridge for Blast. So that is awesome. And then, Waf, do you want to talk a little bit? I see Floppa is talking about Buzz, Buzz, Buzz. I've seen that collection before on Magic Eden. I don't know too much about it. It kind of reminds me of the Fly Open Edition that X Copy did, but I really don't know much more beyond the fact that they're flies.
Yeah, it was like an open edition. You could like pretty much mint as many as you want, and then there was a token that you could have burned for it, and for a while, like that token was worth maybe as high as like 13, $14. I just didn't get to burn in time for that token, and then I just sat on it, and now now that that artist is doing something new with it, according to Floppa. Um, I guess like he's gonna do a burn for something else. So it's like that whole burn mechanism, burn to get something new. I see it's up slightly today. I think it's up about 7.5% today. So people probably sweeping the floor to get some so they could burn for later.
Yeah, it does look like it's up. I will point out it is up on 0.11 Bitcoin worth of volume over the past 24 hours. So it is not super substantial volume by any means, but hey, it's up 15%. So there is something to look at there. NatCat's only
NACAT's
at
only
point
at point.
two of volume, so not much better.
I mean, think about it, it's 154 sales just to have 0.11 BTC of volume. It's kind of funny, right?
It is pretty funny with some of these micro caps. But yeah, let's start wrapping up a little bit because you know you're feeling under the weather here. Let's talk about some of these collections here as well on ordinals, and then we can zoom out as we tend to do to end the episode. But yeah, any other collections here? I really like your call. Oh, dude, I didn't even know OMB's down to 0.18. That is crazy. Yeah, that's like generational sale right there.
That's the one that really stood out at me. Like, I always track Runestone, and then, OMB, like, that's like a much better buy than say, Quantum Cat at these prices. It's just so low. So I would rather spend it on OMB now at 0.18. Could it go lower? I mean, I guess so, but that's quite low price. I haven't even clicked on it to see like what's the how thin the floor is or anything like that. Just looking at the top page and seeing that. So I'm curious to see, how thin that floor really is.
I mean, talk to me about like where do you think the community mainly lies for these ordinal projects? Because I think for something like OMB, with any of these, honestly, there's really no value to holders. And I think that's sort of the trend with ordinals that we've seen as opposed to ETH. At least when ETH NFTs were really taken off, it was always some sort of roadmap associated with it. We could probably thank Yuga for mutants and a number of derivatives, as well as just some tokens and all that stuff. There definitely were a lot of airdrops to these prime collections at the start of Ordinal's bull run a couple months ago, like puppets, node monkeys, OMBs. They're getting all kinds of airdrops. As Ordinals have really slowed down, where do you think the communities are still the strongest? Because I used to see OMB as like airtight, untouchable, ordinal maxis. They're going to be dominating. I really just don't see them as much on my timeline anymore. So I'm curious where you think that strength in community is right now.
I still think it's there. You know, Bitcoin frogs is one that I think has fallen off a bit, comparatively speaking. But you got even those collections that are, not necessarily like the highest floor price, but they seem to be very active, like honey badgers as an example. Like they're always posting giveaways. They're still kind of active in their chat. I want to say is always pretty lit. Um, Pizza Ninjas seem to be cooking. To is doing a great job. I have to give him credit. Like they've been cooking still. Quantum Cats, I don't really go into that Discord, so I really couldn't say. But also like they do all those wizard challenges, and I know they get their community members like really going with that and active to try and get that be on that whitelist for Taproot Wizard. Puppets, to your point, last week, that community I guess is falling off a bit. Although I have seen them on my timeline a little bit more this past week. That price is really beaten down. I mean, point one. I mean, what do you think of? I know you're not so bullish on them anymore, but point one. What do you think? Point one.
Dude, I know. I don't know, Waf. I mean, I don't really see them going much higher anytime soon. The issue I just see is like, it's funny because I mentioned in these episodes, like, there's great opportunities to buy at like point 0.1 and list at point 0.1 and make point 0.01 Bitcoin. I agree with that. But that's like all I see on puppets. And again, I think it's just a matter of the founder being kind of cringe. And again, this is just my opinion. I don't want to offend anyone who's a puppet holder. I was a huge puppet holder. I still think the art is hilarious and like awesome. But I always do try on these shows or anytime I give my opinion in crypto to just keep it a buck. And yeah, I mean, I think there's just slipped off a little from being cool and edgy to now just like trying a little too hard or grasping too hard at stuff that isn't there. And I think the collections that are so cool when they're diamond handing are just totally ambivalent to price. Like they don't give a shit at all. And I think the collections that you see that are constantly talking about the price point, constantly referring to it, it's just not very cool, at least in my mind. It shows to me that there's a lot of paper handers, and those to me are the kind of people who are going to sell immediately. That's not to say it's not going to go back up. I do think Ordinals is a very small ecosystem. So to your point, it's micro cap, right? As soon as we get a little bit of inflow, everything's going to rip. But I don't know. I'd probably say the bottom of puppets, at least in my mind, is like 0.06. I would totally be buyer because that's like dirt cheap. Where do I see it going right now? Starting at point 0.1 probably goes to like 0.08. But yeah, if it goes to like 0.06 or below, I would definitely buy a couple. I think that's just too cheap a price for what they are. And same thing with node monkeys, man. Like we're there already. I am shocked to see them at 0.18. I would say sub 0.15 on node monkeys. I'm for sure a buyer. I think that's just like a slam dunk of a play. Because again, you look at where are people buying hoodies, where do people buy aliens? Really still want to hood Node Monkey pretty badly. So I think that'll happen at some point.
No Monkeys is looking a lot more attractive to me. I just sorted by the 30-day price, and it's down 42.4% over the last 30 days, whereas like puppets are down 18.9%. And you got 15% listed on No Monkey. So these are like the whales capitulating, in my opinion, because you recall how the mechanism on the auction they had for Node Monkey. So if you sent like one big BTC, you wound up getting like 30 plus Node Monkeys, right, at 0.035, the final resting price. So this could be capitulation. I mean, if you have that many listed at this low of a price, I mean, it means these are the minters that are selling, in my opinion.
Oh yeah, 100%. And I mean, don't forget the team itself. I think still has 400 Node Monkeys. I don't think they've sold any of them yet. But as we mentioned, I think if you are going to be buying short term or long term, it doesn't matter. You kind of want stuff that has rare traits. So just looking at Node Monkeys, I saw one that sold 6 hours ago. Had this Mind Police hat that's pretty rare. I think a hoodie I want to say sold. I'm trying to like scroll through while we're talking here. Yeah, a hoodie sold 14 hours ago for 0.28. That is the lowest hoodie sale I've seen in recent memory. Those were selling for about a Bitcoin, 4 or 5 months ago. So big discounts. If I can get a hoodie for 0.2, I'll take it. Any other Node Monkey, I think, I just can't believe it's 0.16. Like that's crazy. But yeah, I think at these prices, I would just look for stuff that has thin floors. I always talk about this for anytime you're looking to buy, it's really easy to just look at the floor and say, are you in a rush to get in or not? So if I pull up Node Monkeys as an example, there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 12 that are at the 0.16 range. They're obviously various prices, but it's all like 0.1594, 0.15945, like just very, very, very small increments. In my mind, those are all basically the same price. When I see 13 of them all at the same price at the floor, that floor is going lower pretty soon. So if I'm looking to buy, I'm probably going to be putting in a bid. But at this low a floor price, I'm imagining that people start selling into the bids pretty soon. And then I'm going to wait to see. So I'm really not looking to buy anything until I see that floor thin out. Even if it breaks through that 0.16 wall, there's a huge wall at 0.13. So I do think Node Monkeys go lower from here. You just have to start looking at what are the floors and what are the price uh, stack and stagnation levels on those. So yeah, we just look at different prices and collections and see what happens. If someone's really scared and needs to get out and lists one at like 0.145 and there's one there, yeah, scoop that up. It's a no-brainer. But that's kind of how I'm going to treat all these ordinals collections. Is just, is it a thin floor? Is it thick? If there's a thin floor, then these prices are great. Go for it. If it's thick, like why even bother, right? There's not a real incentive to rush in.
Yeah, I agree. And there's too many listed. I mean, it's 1,500 listed, so that's a lot to like for the market to digest. So I do think it's going lower. But on the interesting side, and I'm always a floor buyer, by the way, too. I'm not really looking for the rares, but I am looking at the Node Monkey aliens because you recall we had huge buys on the aliens, right? And if you look right now at the aliens, there's one listed for 3.19 Bitcoin, and then the second one is 5, the third is 16.42, and then you go to 19 and then 200, and the rest are unlisted. So again, if you have like that level of conviction and you have the capital, 3.19 BTC for an alien Node Monkey, that might be a steal of the century for the guy who has that money.
It's certainly true, Af. I mean, I don't remember exactly how many Bitcoin the aliens were selling for earlier in the season. I want to say it was like 10 Bitcoin, right? I think it was a lot. So to me, that's definitely a good point that we've talked about before. If there's someone taking huge shots on a collection, then it's usually bullish. It's not a golden rule. It can definitely be wrong. I think someone spent like $1 million on the Yuga key. And I know almost every episode I take a shot at Yuga, but that's my life's mission. I think I tweeted that. Just continue to put down Yuga while it's there. All apologies to Dop Daddy there if you're listening. Sorry about that. And TXL, apologies as well. But yeah, I mean, it doesn't always play out the way that we want it to. But when you have big buys coming in a collection, there's people who have a lot of money invested in it. So once the floors thin out and they can move pretty quickly, if they've already spent $5 to $10 million on a collection, what's a little bit more if it's going to move the needle a lot. So I would be conscientious of past big buys as to what's a good value here, and it certainly seems we're there.
Especially once you get like the trend reversal confirmation, and then you hop on one of these rares at that time, your risk is even lower. And who knows, you could take that Bitcoin alien and flip it for 10 to 12 by the end of the year. It would not be shocking.
Oh yeah, 100%. But I think there's different types of ways to play and different types of traders. As always, I would really just be cognizant of your downside risk. I do think with a collection like Node Monkeys or Puppets or OMB, it's not going to go that further. There's a lot of people who I would describe as wealthy who are in these collections, and that to me is just kind of a big differentiator. We talked before about like what went wrong with Nat Cats in terms of the price going down so much. It really just fell into the hands of a couple whales and they minted them for free. But if you're looking at Node Monkeys, there's a pretty good distribution of holders. Same thing with Puppets. And a lot of those buys happened over the price that they're at currently. So, some people are going to capitulate, but I think for the most part, it is going to just be a return back to the mean. And with these high price points, I don't really think the mean is going to be that much higher than it's at right now. I think you look at the charts, this is probably right around the average sales for Node Monkeys a couple months ago. Same thing with Puppets. So at these levels, keep an idea of the range. But yeah, definitely trade within those ranges, folks. Like I'll keep shouting it out. I think there's really good money to be made, especially if you have enough to buy a couple of them so you can have some upside runners. But even if you have like zero point 0.1 Bitcoin, you can buy a puppet if it falls to 0.08 and then resell it if it goes to 0.1. So there's totally really viable strategies at all price points.
Yeah, there's a strategy for everybody. So Bitcoin has now reclaimed 60,000 just now. So maybe we'll close. I think we close at 8 o'clock Eastern for the day. Maybe Bitcoin closes above 60 to end the day, and then just another day over 60 for Bitcoin. So, much ado about nothing at the end.
It's so poetic. But on that note of it crossing 60 WAF, let's wrap it up here. We're on the hour mark. Hope you feel better, bro. Always great catching up and talking shop here. As always, thanks to the audience for asking questions. Shout out to Floppa, as always, for sharing some projects there. Just appreciate it, everybody.
Yeah, thanks, Ross, man. Hopefully we chop it up again next week, and we never know how the market will look like in just 7 days. It just turns so quickly.
100%, man. But we'll definitely be active in MVHQ in 2 days here. So we'll see everybody on Blast TG. Until then, stay safe, stay cool, and we'll catch you next time.
Later.